What's cooking, folks? Vermillion Phoenix here, and today we're jumping back into some more Orcs Must Die Unchained. This time I'm going to start the run that won the poll, which is some overviews for Cygnus. Just going over what the hero is capable of, and trying to show off a few interesting situations there. Just randomly got something in my throat. Alright, we're going to jump into the baths just because I haven't played in like a couple weeks, but I want to make sure that I'm comfortable using the character, and then we're going to try to go through a few other things. And I usually use this stage to talk about the various things that the hero can do before actually, you know, having to execute everything down to a T. So I think there's really not too much here. Cygnus actually benefits a lot from mana regeneration, so anything that handles that for him is really good. But there's not too many things that actually do that well. I think the only thing that really aids mana regeneration as far as the traits goes significantly is one with the traps. And for the baths, fire and spikes usually does everything really well. Where are my spikes? There we go. And then I think I'm going to bring some boom barrel rollers just because I haven't gotten to use those here in a little while, and I also got them to tier 7 sort of during the downtime. So that was nice. And then we'll bring a web spinner just for some added points. Really won't do much else. There we go. Alright. This can really be anything else. It doesn't benefit Cygnus too much. I'm keeping the smashing deal since everything except for Floor Scorcher deals physical damage. That'll take care of the boss or two. Alright, let's go ahead and hop in.
You may find yourselves in awe of me. Do not stop fighting if this happens.
Alright, so let's take a quick look at his weavers or upgrades before we actually jump into the map. I like this color. He actually looks it's like young Cygnus, because this gives him brown hair instead of white. I wonder what his original hair color would have been if Cygnus hadn't been old. Like, because he's been essentially old since the original Orcs Must Die. But yeah, his tier 1 upgrades, they've been shifted around a few times, and I think since they're really not going to do any more hero updates for the game, this is sort of where we'll see things settle. But Experienced is an interesting choice, mainly because it's the first one there. It reduces the summoning time of rift shards by 75%. It normally takes you a couple seconds to actually get the rift out, and that means that you have to space yourself appropriately from enemies. This pretty much gets rid of that. You can throw up a rift almost anywhere and it happens instantly. Now the trade-off for that is that the you don't get to pick Silver Streak. And Phylactery, the buff old man, is interesting if you want to go for a trap activation build. Cygnus has the ability at a later tier to summon his pylon, which is Q, or his third ability, and it will buff and activate all of the traps that are empowered by it. So if you're using something like spikes, what else? Something bursty, wall blades or pounders. When you throw that up, and you can literally just keep doing that every 8 seconds, you get a bonus activation of all of your traps, and that is you can't really underestimate that. It's a really, really good ability. Silver Streak is a cooldown on Chain Lightning. Normally it takes 3 seconds to cool down. Actually probably closer to 4 if you include the activation time, but taking it down by a second literally allows you to essentially get a 33% damage increase on it, and because it chains to multiple enemies, it's a very potent source of damage for Cygnus. Then we get to tier 2 upgrades. Now, in combination with the Rift faster summoning time, you really get to look at Paternal Instinct and Mini-Master in a very different way. Paternal Instinct makes it so that when you summon your Rift, it lasts 20% longer. I believe by default it lasts about 12 seconds, and that takes it up to 15. Actually, I have more than enough time. There we go. So It's got a 30-second cooldown because I have 10 seconds off of the cooldown time, which means this is probably closer to 10, and that gives it 9 seconds. But yeah, 20% longer basically takes that from the normal 12 seconds that the rift lasts to 15, meaning that it's up half the time, which is a really solid buff because it gives them double damage. So basically 100% of the time you have double the damage. It's a 50% damage buff. It also gives you a bonus HP and mana regeneration, and it affects your party. So if you're playing in a team, like Cygnus is a really good DPS hero to use. He does a very solid amount of damage. Obviously being able to buff your damage by 50% is, or I'm sorry, by 100% is ridiculous. It's 50% about when averaged. And then that just makes it really good. Like any additional uptime on the Rift Shard is great. Mini Master is sort of a throwback to the old version of Cygnus. At one point when the game was sort of a MOBA, they had the Rift. The Rift basically shot lightning out of it and damaged enemies that were nearby. It won't do that automatically anymore, but if you select Mini Master, it will deal damage to anything that walks by the Rift, up to 3 targets at a time. That used to be an extremely powerful ability, but because of the way that they've changed it, it has an extremely short range. And because of that, I find myself barely ever picking Mini Master. It's really only good if you're trying to summon the Rift and then go to a different location to fight, or if you think you have enough trap damage to set it up and really secure an area. But due to the fact that you really don't want to be away from the Rift and things have to get too close, because of that, it's really not that great. It also, as it says, removes the healing from the Rift Shard, and that also is a pretty big aspect of it. Like, you can use it to essentially ferry health and mana to teammates, and just being able to select a small amount of damage to a group, especially when lightning kills cause AoE anyway, it's not going to work out too well. And if you have to cast it close enough so that enemies will be near it to get the damage off in the first place, it means you're putting Cygnus in harm. So Mini Master lost a lot of its utility just because of changes to the game over time, which really kind of sucks, but it's still interesting when used. Like, it can pull off some pretty nice like damage splits between waves, especially if you're playing alone, since you deal more damage. But most of the time, tier 2, you're going to wind up picking Paternal Instinct. Mana Miser seems interesting. Saying your primary attack, Cygnus's primary attack normally costs him 6 mana. Having that go away while the Rift Shard is active would be cool if, you know, you didn't have a longer damage buff and the Rift Shard itself wasn't already giving you bonus mana and HP. Like, it's counterintuitive. Like, would you like more damage, health, and mana regeneration, or would you like more mana regeneration? Like, I mean, that's a significant amount of mana regeneration, since you could be attacking for a whole 15 seconds, and that's a good amount of mana. But it still doesn't offer you the other benefits or to your team. So Mana Miser is probably the worst option here, even with all the reductions to Mini Master over time. Then we have tier 3. Tier 3 is interesting. It's probably really what's going to make or break your game. If you're having any sort of like issues on a map. Pylon Patriarch. This is the one that I mentioned. Yeah, activate all damaging traps in its range. So if a trap does damage and it can be buffed by this, let me actually see if I can set some of these up just so you guys can see them. So oh, it's too far. Nope. Did that backwards. There we go. They haven't played in so long, I'm screwing stuff up left and right. Let's move you, point you this way then. So, you can see the tar, the spikes, and the floor scorcher here. Now, unfortunately, they don't actually show you what this will activate, like by highlighting it when you place it, like with like some sort of green outline or something, or or maybe like making them flash like blue or red temporarily. But when you activate it, you can see those traps turned blue. This only gives a damage bonus to blue traps. It doesn't boost any sort of status traps. And any of the traps that would be affected by it then activate immediately upon it casting, dealing their bonus damage, which is quite ridiculous. And because you can cast this about every 9 seconds, even more if you stack cooldown reduction with the potion and some other effects like the guardians, you can really spam traps left and right quite ridiculously. It's an amazing ability and should never be overlooked if you feel that you're lacking damage. Tough Old Geezer halves the damage that you take, which is hilarious because Cygnus used to be in a position where they have this base HP, and he used to have a status effect that just said old. Then this was removes old, which basically just doubled his HP or gave him back what he originally would have, and now they're taking it I cannot speak tonight. Even further, and turning this into just a further doubling of the HP. So it's just ridiculous tanky Cygnus. And for melee here, or I'm sorry, a ranged hero to have that much tankiness, because this is only battle level 1. You have to imagine how much HP you're going to have at 20. It's quite nice. And then Ornery Old Timer, which is probably the default if you don't have a lot of traps that you're really like proud of, or you're playing with multiple people and you have to travel a lot, you don't really get close enough to activate the traps with the pylons often. Ornery Old Timer is probably the choice you're going to go for if you're going to stay out of harm's way. It just means the big minions and the bosses are going to take all the damage for you, and stacks with the bonus that you get from Rift Shard. So you're talking about a ton of damage. And then lastly, we look at the T4 stuff, and this is just gravy for Cygnus. Either you take Enlightening Education, which increases the damage from Chain Lightning for each enemy it hits. This is actually going to be stronger when you have exactly like the amount of enemies to hit, rather than Get Off His Lawn. Get Off His Lawn does the same amount of damage as normal Chain Lightning, but it does it to 3 additional targets when you're near the Rift or you have a Rift Shard nearby. So that's going to be powerful when you have groups of enemies. 99% of the time, though, people are going to take Maniacal Master to stun a small group of enemies with the Chain Lightning. And all of these synergize with Silver Streak. So if you like Silver Streak or Chain Lightning at all, then you're going to want to take Silver Streak early just to capitalize on the tier 4 Weavers, because they're all good. And really, it just comes down to whether, like, how you need to split up your extra damage or stuns, because it's the only stun that Cygnus gets. But he's strong as hell, and let's go ahead and get this demonstrated now. His health bar just flash colors, or was that just me? Well, it's recorded, so I guess we'll see. And there's going to be some explosives eventually coming through here. I don't really care about them that much. Now, the good thing about lightning damage is that when enemies are grouped up and one of them dies to lightning, they take a bit of damage from that death as an explosive AoE around the unit that died. I don't think I've talked about it extensively in the Elements video. Actually, did I make the Elements video? I don't think I actually completed that video. I thought about it, but I don't think I ever actually finished the time editing it and putting it up. But essentially, that's what's special about lightning. On death, explosive AoEs, and that explosion counts as a separate point for combos, which is really, really nice. I'm gonna take Silver Streak today. Because if you happen to explode a light enemy onto a heavier one, then if you kill them quickly with, of course, an additional primary attack, then you get to just stack a ton of damage. Okay, I think we want to do this like this. There we go. And I haven't actually looked personally at whether or not the damage from the AoE is specifically rooted in anything that you do with your hero. Oh, I misplaced that. That's alright. I get to replace it in a moment. Actually, right now.
That goes there.
Actually, I can sell this entire line. Alright, let's do this without the barricades because they're going to start running into issues soon.
Just like old times.
And we're just going to put these back. Alright, so unstable rifts really aren't that big an issue as long as you have line of sight. Cygnus's projectiles, they are projectiles, they travel, they take time, and because of that, they're actually somewhat large, but you do have to make sure that you place your shots. And because of the fact that they cost mana, you want to make sure that you have some constant source of mana regeneration with you if possible. Now for me, I have there are mana siphons inside of my viscous tar, so I'm not really worried too much about my mana right now. But if I did not have those, you'd see me throwing up the Rift Shard pretty often just to keep my mana topped off. Of course, I am also using one with the traps, and that's increasing my mana generation above what it would be by default as well. So I am pretty stable. Not going to worry too much about what's coming through as far as mana goes. These guys aren't going to get probably... Oh, that was a lot. Alright, now we can use this to restore our mana. Or health. Health is definitely what I meant to say. You can see the damage boost with the crazy high numbers. One thing that I always thought was Oh, you don't. One thing that I always thought was interesting about Rift Lord and its 100% damage boost due to Rift Shards and the Rift itself is that it seems to be able to double the damage that enemies take rather than doubling the damage that you deal. And that doesn't sound very different, but it's where it's at in the damage calculation that's important. When fighting soldiers or anything that has the steady ability or damage reduction, generally, no matter how high your damage numbers get, they change that number before they take the damage. And when the damage multiplication happens at the end, after that damage you deal gets reduced, Cygnus seems to double at that point. So where other people will be doing like say 20 damage, you could be doing 40 plus. Alright, let's just try to stay in the middle so he doesn't knock us off. Alright, and I think he's dead already. Oh, what? Oh, was that the Grenadiers? Oh, they threw it at me, but the Guardian was in the way. Okay. So, I'm not sure if Pylon Patriarch is actually going to reach those or even work on those. It may give him a boost. Well, let me place it up there, right? Of course not. Okay, so it does not have huge vertical range. Alright, so I have it free now. So you can see everything there activate. Now, that actually makes a lot of characters really good in teams. A lot of people ask me like who I think would be great in a team. Cygnus is always one of those heroes. He just has so many interactions with both other players and traps that he's really never a bad pick. Because he can activate the traps, because he can heal the team, he's literally just like everything that a support character would be. And on top of that, he just has the ability to deal crazy amounts of damage.
Good spot for this.
Okay, now I can't get this to kill this one for me. But that boss is definitely dead. That's also the lovely thing about Chain Lightning. If you're like seeing things come up to you, Cygnus's kit is interesting in that his primary attack is a projectile. and his alternate attack or secondary is hit scan. Like if something's on the crosshairs and you push it, it's hit. Like no questions, no travel time, it's just done. Where it's usually the opposite with most characters. You'll get a character like Max, whose primary attack is hit scan, but of course is wildly inaccurate because of how fast it fires. And then his secondary attack's a skill shot. Takes a second to travel, has a little bit of activation time, and then you have to hit an enemy, and then there's a small explosion where the effect happens. But Cygnus is essentially backwards, which I guess comes from all that experience killing orcs. But that's one of the reasons why I think Cygnus, from start to finish, has always been like just a really interesting and powerful character. Even when, I think back before they had revamped a ton of the characters, he just was one of the characters that happened to be like really good from the jump. He and Ozio, I think, were pretty much my favorite two characters when I started the game, after I learned like about the entire cast. Originally, everything was just Smolder all day. And that was just because I liked the whole theme with the character, the whole Phoenix and Firebird thing. Shameless plug. Sorry about that. And that had nothing to do with the channel name, because I created that before I started playing this game. But go ahead and grab the stun. Yeah, I didn't even have to do that. That's why I usually like leaving the BGH Ballista in the build, just because if there's an opportunity to take care of an unstable rift without you having to think about it, it's going to be that trap. Okay. Man, I'm not even building any extra traps. I probably could. You can do something stupidly ridiculous like this. Always on fire. Cygnus also has the largest base mana pool in the game at 320, which is obviously necessary considering his primary attack requires mana. And because of that, I'm probably going to be misrepresenting Cygnus a bit. A lot of people think he's a bit easier to use when you start the game than what he actually is. It is impossible to understate or just tell people how good mana siphons are when playing with Cygnus. Like, it is ridiculous. Alright, can they see it? No, they can't. This is the only place where you can actually hide from this ballista position. You could move them a little bit closer over here, but the best thing to do is leave 2 at the back there and then put a couple over there. You are a troll. You are now a dead troll. Okay.
No trespassing. Final wave.
So I have a couple of I think self-improving coil. Yeah, self-improving coils, that's what it's called. The spring that increases its trap speed the longer it's out, like 3% per wave. I believe I have 2 of them, and ooh, he got wrecked. But I need to see if they actually work when combined, or if you can't stack them. If you can't stack them, I might just have to switch to a braided. Alright, important thing to know, this also should increase damage from other sources that Cygnus has. I think it does anyway, I could be wrong about that. I'm sure it increases your normal damage, but I'm not sure if it boosts the ring and the fire. Just because they have sort of weird interactions. But yeah, that's going to be Cygnus just starting out, and we got that 5,000 chain lightning damage. But you can see Cygnus does a lot of damage. Traps, even with all of the stuff that was happening there, really couldn't out damage Cygnus himself. So he hits hard. But next we're going to go into maximum security, and what I should be able to demonstrate there is because of the rift being in the center and you being able to fire through the gates, you pretty much shouldn't have to worry about any of the unstable rifts that spawn in the ring. If they happen to spawn there, if they're not over in this corner or back here, then yeah, we can just take them out from there. But let us go ahead and end this one for now. I sincerely appreciate you guys for tuning in. Hope you learned something. If you're enjoying the series, feel free to leave a like. If there's something you want to see, feel free to drop that in the comments. I know a lot of people have been just repeatedly requesting that I play Fortnite. I am playing the game, but I haven't decided what to put up on the channel. Maybe some talk about just good hero combinations and weapons that are good, I guess. Or maybe like there's a lot of stuff to talk about with it now. Not just playing the game. I'm mostly just in to save the world. I'm not going to be doing a whole lot of battle royale stuff just because it's kind of boring to me. Not saying it's not fun, but I am not a fan of sort of a protracted, like 30 minutes or die in the first 3 type of situations. Like, I like to play for the whole extent of an event. I'm not a last man standing kind of guy. But that's just to say that I'll get to it at some point. But as far as this, yeah, just drop whatever you guys want to see. I know there's a lot of games I have lined up that I plan on playing, and at some point, either if it's not early tomorrow, well, I guess you guys don't know what tomorrow is. If it's not early, sometime on the weekend, you guys will probably catch me streaming the end of BioShock 2 on the channel. I'm going to do it through YouTube, just so I can kind of make sure that everything's lined up and the quality stays the same, and then I'm just going to pin it to the end of the playlist, and that'll be everything, just because I'm tired of that game crashing endlessly. But either way, I'm on to more Cygnus stuff, and you guys will see that soon. Thanks again for tuning in. I know this has been long-winded, but I appreciate it, like everybody here. Thanks as always, and until next time, have a good one, folks.